Hello, I'm Grandad. I've got a small shop in the Cotswolds selling second-hand tools and bits and pieces. And I've got a bit of a problem, mostly with low quality imported tools and goods. Some of you may recognise this as a hex collet block, an ER32 collet block to be exact. But I have a very big problem with it. It's not exactly what you might call accurate. Unfortunately, this came from China. It was advertised as made in Germany, but when it arrived, it had loads of Chinese writing all over the box, so clearly made in China, and it just doesn't measure up. Okay, so I've put this piece of dowel, engineered quarter dowel, in the collet block, and I'm just passing it under a DTI. Now, not only is it not central, the collet, due to the engineering of the taper not being perfectly central to the hex, but the hexes aren't perfectly flat, so they rock backwards and forwards and left and right, and the end isn't square, so if you were to place it vertical, it would pivot around its centre. It wouldn't be, it would create a cone shape, an inverted cone with the dowel. Now, some people may say I'm just picking on China, but it does have a bit of a reputation for rubbish engineering, cheap materials that aren't up to spec, and terrible machining. This, for example, is a shaft out of a small machine that I bought. It was an electric motor. This is the central shaft out of it, and the threads that have been cut are absolutely atrocious. I can't even get a nut on them, so I'm not going to bother. So the whole thing got scrapped. The insulation in the windings was no good either. But yeah, so as a rule, I think us in England can do a lot better. So my answer to this is to make my own. So I'm going to make a collet block, a hex collet block and a square collet block eventually, with my Myford lathe. I have a Myford tri-lever lathe, and I believe in this country, with the small army of backyard engineers that we have, we can produce much better stuff than the Chinese can. So that's what this YouTube channel is all about. British engineering produced to a much higher standard than the Chinese at affordable costs in our own garages and backyards, sold to British people at an affordable price. Now, there was a time when Britain was the workshop of the world. The Industrial Revolution really started here with the Victorians. You know, there's so many things that us Brits can be proud of having produced. And it'd be nice to rekindle that. Most of our industry today is dying, but it needn't die completely. And with the aid of YouTube, I'm hoping to gather those people together so that there is a library of people that can produce things for the average person at the average price. And be proud of what we produce. You know, we can produce things that are incredibly high quality without all the fancy electronic kit that the Chinese have got, and they still manage to screw it up. So here's one for Britain. So over the next few weeks, come with me on my journey as I aim to reproduce tooling for my lathe and produce tools for sale that are part of a cottage industry, back to the way it used to be back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, when Birmingham and London and places like that were a hive of activity with little workshops around every corner. And let's see what we can create to sell in the shop and revive the good old British industry.